I'm here. I don't know if I'm seen or heard, but I am here. I hope you are here. I see some of you logging in on Facebook, YouTube. I was going to say iChurch, man, that's been a while. And Twitter, thank God for you coming on. We're working through the tech. It's touchy tech, as it turns out. If I can get a signal, can I be seen and heard? Connie and Olivia, am I seen? Am I heard? Okay. We are official. Welcome to Nothing Else Matters. Now with more technology. It's even better than the last. But I am Michael Smith. I am your host today on this, the bestest place to be on the internet. I can Justin Wilson, Gay Ronti it. We're going to get into some powerful things concerning you, concerning your life, concerning what it is, what this human experience is all about, what this incarnational experience that we're having in this world, and digging to some roots, looking at some expression of, how to, I don't want to say how to make sense of it all, but how to fully come in contact with the complexity of what it is to have this shared, vulnerable, frail, beautiful incarnational experience in this material world. And we're on a hunt, we're on a chase, we're on a trail of some beautiful things, and have been amazingly number 140. It's hard to believe. We were in the studio prepping to go live this morning, and what's the number? 140, 140 weeks we've been gathering, and oh, how blessed am I, how blessed are we, those of you. If you've been out there, if you're out there and you've been out there for all 140, like you've been on since the beginning, just raise your hand. Let me see your hand. Okay, I see that hand. I see that hand. I see that hand. I see that hand back there. Thank you. How we used to do in church, I see that hand. Thank you. Every head bowed, every eye. I see that hand. Some of you have been around since the very beginning, and boy, you already know what you mean to us. Today is going to be a continuation. If you're a first timer, you say, man, what is this? I don't even know what this is. I'm scrolling. Uh, I scroll and I surf and I scroll and I surf, and you're here now, and you say, what is this? You are right on time. We're in a series. I don't even know what part we're in, but we're in a series uncovering what it means to bring benevolence, to live righteously. Somebody asked a question this past week, what does it mean to live righteously? And it means to live benevolently, and we've been unpacking that. Instead of perpetuating the malevolence and the chaos of this present age, dealing with what true religion is. What is true religion? True religion is the embodiment of the benevolence of the not yet, the not yet place, that next place that we're all heading. It's to embody that benevolence in this world. It's to embody the peace of the not yet world in this world. It's to embody the joy of the not yet world in this world that is sometimes and very oftentimes and at all times in some places and spaces seemingly absent of that joy. So we've been covering that, and we're going to get into some things today. If you're a long timer, it's going to start filling in blanks as it does every week. People write and say, man, the more I hear, the clearer it becomes. We spent the first 100 episodes putting these huge pillars in place, these huge pylons, right? These digging deep. And now we're able to start connecting and building connections, and it's getting richer and richer, as we say, gooder and gooder. So let's pray. Lord, I thank you for today. For the entrance of your word bringing light. I thank you for everyone gathered. So many, Lord, those that are live and so many watching via replay. Just minister, encourage, strengthen. Lord, so many facing battles. It is tense times, the intensity of the time. And I thank you that light and comfort and peace will arise, that we will not find comfort in today's chaos in a perpetuated false religion, but we'll find comfort in today's chaos from the large view, from the omega view, from the view which is big enough to include instead of exclude, that we will have a Christ-centered, that our religious view will not match the teachings of historical Christianity, but it will be aligned with the enduring revelation and clarity of the person of Christ. And I thank you for it. Thank you, Lord, that no weapon formed against this time shall prosper. Lord, lift, touch, heal, comfort, strengthen, empower, encourage, reveal, edify all those that are listening today and via replay. I thank you that the joy of the Lord is their strength. We believe to see it, Lord. I yield myself to you. Let it be by your grace and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so before we get to the message, thank you to those of you who support us. This is brought to you by viewers like you, those of you who say, you know what, I watch this and it does something to me. It blesses me. I appreciate it. Those who say, I watch this and I believe in it. I believe in you guys. I'm benefiting from it. Thank you for your support. You can find out how to support us. There's all sorts of different ways. And you know what? People are popping up all over the world and saying, "Hey, I'm in the UK. I'm over here. How do I get involved?" And thank you. We hear you. We receive the encouragement like wind in our sails. And of course, I was not entirely aware of the scope of some of the comments and things that were going on. Some of the um, when you get trained that when you get trained that God is after everybody, your religious view becomes that you have to be after everybody because you're the forerunner. You're the wrath of God in the light of God to prevent the true damnation and wrath of God in other people's lives. And I was just not aware until last week the extent of it, that how bad that was going on. But I did talk to some people. I talked last week. I think there's a new plan now that for every negative comment and every negative post or whatever I'm tagged in, it's to say, okay, for everyone I see, I'm gonna add $1 more into my monthly support. So to those of you who harass, those of you who thrive on harassment, please harass us 300 times in this broadcast today. That's what I need you to do. Harass us 300 times. I need you to harass us 300 times this week online. And the veiled threats and all those other kind of things, and some not so veiled, as many as you can possibly do, because now they're not stressful. Now they're not, oh my gosh, how in the world, why would anybody be so, and now it's like, oh cool, they're hassling us again. That's going to look really good because Mikey wanted a new pair of shoes. So what is it? Baby need a new pair of shoes. So anyway, God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you all. We're gonna have a powerful day today. All right, so we're in this idea of finding your story within the story, and I can't believe we're on part 7, but yeah, we're on part 7 today. And you notice in the stream title a thing called the source and shape of all shared religion, and I just want you to kind of take that as an opening thought as we move through this. Lots going to be coming in the notes. I know some of you may say, I watch on YouTube. I don't know when they do YouTube. Does anybody know? Mikey may know. When somebody watches it with comments on, will it show the notes as they're posted? Okay, good. So if you get the notes on YouTube, you get the notes on Facebook, a couple different places. But we also post them in our small group, so I hope they're a blessing to you. But here it is. So catch this idea. We're going to start off with this today, and this is going to build a beautiful picture. Connie and I sat in a Publix parking lot, I guess it was yesterday, for over an hour, just unpacking the power and beauty of this. Which is good because in our Publix parking lot, you sit out there for an hour, and the cars on the left and the right of you are getting high. So it's kind of like this, cross pollination of, revelation and then, expansion of the mind. So here's the thought. And these are coming in your notes. Though every inspired religion springs from the same source. I like that idea. I was thinking this, that every inspired religion, all forms of inspired religion that you've ever heard, Taoism, Confucianism, Islam, Christianity, Protestantism, Jainism, Judaism, right? Whatever, Catholicism, whatever inspired, all the Hindu idea, all forms of inspired religion, right? They spring from a shared source. And in my notes, I have that source as a capital S. So we can maybe do the thing here. So the shared source, all religions of the world, all inspired religions, and I'll kind of explain that in a minute. And you've got all your land masses, and you got all your land masses, and all the inspired religions of the world, they spring from the same source. That there's humans all over the world, and inside those humans, right, is their heart or their inner man or their large self, right? And all inspired religions in the world spring from a shared source. So that's a key thing. So even though they spring from a shared source, thanks, Mike, here's the B of that. Each religion's identity, right, its formulation, its application. So they all come from the same source, but their formulation, their identity, their application is shaped by its cultural, tribal, regional, and historic uniqueness. Now, this is so scary to a guy like me because I was raised, like most of you, I was shown the Bible, told this is the sum total of all things that are God. Anything that doesn't match up with this Bible is not God. And anybody who suggests anything beyond the pages of the Bible is not only not of God, they're the enemy of God. and you need to get them, to be against them and to stand against them. Um, so that but as an act of mercy before God gets them. Of course, that is the central of Antichrist satanic ideas, and we don't like that when it blows up planes, right? We don't like that when it blows up bombs. We don't like that when it, we say, well, my God, what's wrong with these people? They don't know that God is love, and then of course we take upon ourselves, out of our false perception, that God is not love, that God is something other than love, that somehow God is inferior to the love that we have for our own children. That we couldn't love our children even in error, right? That we would stand by or tolerate the harm of our children even in error, that we would be so deceived by false religion that it would allow us to stand in a public square, that our child lied, or our child stole something, or our child got pregnant out of wedlock, or married somebody not of our religion, and we would allow the community to destroy that child. We would stand by while they beat that child, while they whipped that child, while they stoned and killed that child, drug that child to the street. And what would ever persuade us to disconnect? How could we ever be so deceived as to disconnect from the essence of what it means to be a parent, to love in process, right? That we would ever participate in such things. Why would we do that? Because of two fears. Number one, fear that if we don't check that evil, right, the evil that our child got pregnant out of wedlock, or the evil that our child married somebody of a non-religion, or the evil that our child went to a religious temple that wasn't ours. If we don't rid that evil from the earth, it's going to spread in the earth, and our job is to keep them from spreading, which comes out of a false idea about God, right? And the second thing is that we do that evil as a sign that we are against it, so that God doesn't punish us for our tolerance of it, right? So that's another demonic manifestation. And then, of course, the highest demonic manifestation is this: that that we do this evil. We would allow this evil to our own children, that would just come out of us, as a preemptive a strike, so that it's preservative. That what we know is horrible, right? That we would take an animal, that we would allow our animal to be beat in the street, and wailing and screaming. I mean, Kenobi one time threw his back out in the middle of the night. It was 2 a.m, and he just starts, and he had pulled a muscle and slipped a little disc in his back, and he starts wailing. And I mean, I can hear it now, the screaming, and you couldn't touch him, and you couldn't carry him. And we brought him to the vet, and he screamed the whole way in the car, and the vet picked him up, and he screamed the whole way in the car. That somebody would say, we must do that to our children. We must do that to our animals. Because if we don't, imagine what God is going to do to us. So it takes a concerted, fancy, sophisticated perversion of the Antichrist nature of God to weave into us through or else, right, ideas that we would begin to believe through a false concept of God, that we would be deceived into a religion that presents that false concept. So what we have is a shared source, that we have a shared source that in all places, right, which is why it all ties to love. I mean, you go to places, I don't care where you go to China and 1,000 city, gods and temples and Confucianism and Taoism and Islam and Buddhism, and you go all these different things, and they all have different shapes, right? Because they all have different histories and different they have different historical stories, right? They have different tribal connections, different regions, different cultures, and those shape their idea of God. But the shape that it takes in every temple, right? The shape that it takes in all multiple hundred. I don't know how many denominations we're up to in Christianity. We were at several hundred. I'd heard we were like 700 or 800, could be even more than that. Each one of them takes a shape by our inherited history, inherited story, inherited culture. The shapes are manifold, right? But the source is one. So back to the iPad here, Mike, if we can. So we have a source which is a capital S, right? That the capital S comes from our heart, but then each of these inspired religions, let's see if I can get another color here, has a lowercase s, right? And it takes different shapes all over the world, throughout time, throughout history. And what's interesting is the more society has begun to interact, right, over time. We got ships, right, and ships sail, and people travel, and it's almost a decent ship, and they sail here and they sail here, and this one sails here, and then we've got books, right? So ideas get passed around. I don't know if I can do a little book here. It's kind of a little book, right? Little books travel, and ideas travel, and philosophies, and what's happening is, as the cultural, tribal, regional walls get broken down and the waters get mixed together, guess what happens? The shape starts to look more and more the same. So as the travel and the information and the connection and the touching, right? People are no longer barbarians in our eyes, or people are no longer, less than human in our eyes, because the more and more we interact and touch, the more and more the cultural, tribal waters blend. I was over in West Africa. And I was standing in a shop. Thanks, Mikey. I was standing in a shop, a retail shop in West Africa, and I was listening to as I was checking out, the radio was playing, our American white supremacist music, right? Kill a brother, shoot a brother, she's a hoe, kill a hoe, and I was there, and that's our cultural export, to the motherland. I was like, good gracious, this is it. And I mean, not playing loud, right? Like, this is the ideal type thing. This dysfunction, we package it up and send it back home, which is just kind of gross, but. Anyway, but you'll find, that's look at how dressed. I mean, it used to be that you would go to another country and you would go, you got to go see how they dress. They dress totally different than we. And now it's like you go to every country and they're all kind of wearing very similar ideas. And as a matter of fact, when they put on their traditional clothes, it's like, yeah, I'm wearing the traditional garments. What they're doing is saying, I'm stepping back in time from our shared mixing brackish waters, which is a little bit ours, a little bit theirs, mixing up the sausages with this and that, right? I'm now showing a cultural, political, all these different ideas merging together. And when I was coming up in Christianity, I was taught that's the worst thing that could ever happen. That's heading you to the one world government. That's heading you to the new world order. That's heading you to some sort of oneness, the very oneness that God tried to get rid of back in Babylon. If you start mixing and matching, we're going to be mix and match, deceived away from the truth. But what that is we're saying, if our lowercase s gets removed and starts mingling with other lowercase s's and we lose our identity, we are set up for God's wrath. And I'm telling you, if you have ears to hear, somebody say, you ain't talking from the Bible. I just explained to you the whole Bible, man. I just told you exactly what it is. That is the fear. That is Saul of Tarsus. That is Peter. That is everybody right there. Dude, don't let anybody mingle our lowercase s, right? Second Temple Israel, we're one family, one tribe, one people, one nation, one temple, one law, one blood. Don't let anybody mess with that. And here comes Paul trotting out, and he said, well, he saw God, and God told him that his lowercase s was too small. There was a bigger version, and he's got a little bit of Greek philosophy in there, and he's got a little bit of Roman. And man, he was raised out there in Cilicia, outside of Israel, so he's got a little bit of this. And what's he doing? He's allowing his lowercase s thoughts to come in and mix with our lowercase s, and what comes out of it looks very similar in source, but very different in shape. And now we have this religion that no one can tell you, is it a Jewish-based religion? Is it a European-based religion? Is it a North and East Africa-based religion? Is it a Middle Eastern religion? Is it a Greek source? Is it well, that's tied to the Babylonians, and that's tied to the tribes in the deep in the continent of Africa. What? It's all of those things. It's a shared source deep inside that takes on throughout time. Religious lowercase s ideas fall off, new s ideas emerge, and the existing s ideas emerge and mix, and it comes out now with something that is contributing and moving us towards the larger idea. So let's get into this today. So back into your notes, and I hope you're catching what I'm putting down here. Because somebody say, you're trying to talk me out of God. I'm trying to talk you into the truth of God. And maybe we can hear that today. So, and again, I'm not sure if comments, please, for the love of God, Daddy needs 500 comments today. Okay, so, so what do you mean by inspired, Pastor Mike? When you say inspired religion, what do you mean by inspired religion? I'll give you a simple definition. By inspired religion, I don't mean something that's designed for predation, right? I don't mean something that's designed. And a lot of what happens is we have a false idea that the existing religions of the world were invented for predatory practices. That there's a brain trust somewhere that sat around and said, if we invent an idea, that's not the way inspired religion happens. That's not the way the major religions of the world have happened. The major religions of the world all come from the same source. And what is inspired religion? I'll give you this definition. Any and all attempts to provide image-seeded answers to chaos-conditioned questions. An inspired religion, all inspired religion, any inspired religion, is an attempt to say, let me look at my intuitive knowing. What do we know? Made in the likeness and image of God, right? And that's just not a Hebrew Genesis 1 idea, although it is a Genesis 1 Hebrew idea. It is an idea that is central to many philosophies around the world, that we bear the image of the divine. And so an image-seeded question, right? An image-seeded answer. I look around and I see the chaos in my generations. I look around and I see the chaos in the world. I look around and I see something, and even though I'm wired and inclined to sink in the chaos, right? There's a ballast. There's a floating measure inside me that lifts me toward some sort of redemptive arc. And that is the source of all inspired religion, that I'm aware of the chaos because I see it around me. I'm aware of the dehumanization, right? I'm aware of the indignity, not only because I see it around me, because I'm aware of it in myself. And I look for an answer to that chaos conditioned question. That there's chaos in the world, chaos in me, chaos in my generations up and down, chaos in society. And so what do? I hoist my sails for an image-seated answer. How in my large self, in my what the writer of Romans said, that which may be known of God is planted inside every human ability. When I look at the chaotic questions of the world, and then I look within and try to scoop out of myself what is an answer, I get to that which may be known of God, which is present inside every man. And somebody said, well, then if they're all coming out of the same source, how come they all look so different? How come they all are divided? How come we have so much history of religious war? Because when we go to the source is a shared source, but the shaping takes on an us-them idea. It takes on a we have this and they don't idea. And so you have one group with their taking out of the source and getting a shape that doesn't look like ours. Another group who takes out of their same source. The sources are the same, but has another shape. And now here we go to war, not over the source of the formulation of religion, but over the cultural, tribal, historical, territorial, regional shape that it has taken. I hope you're catching what I'm trying to say. So this explains why no formal, established, and I have this in my notes, articulated religion can entirely rid itself from the false comfort of an us-them cohesion. So this is the trick. This is the trick. We look at the chaos in the world that we've inherited, agitated by the dark powers. Our mythos, our stories, that which the narrative we craft about God tells us that there was a time in which humanity was undisturbed. Right? We call in our, I thought the other day, I hate that phrase, Judeo-Christian values. It's just such a strange thing. Why do we say Judeo-Christian values? Which maybe we'll talk about that today. Because we consider ourselves to have exclusive rights to this image-seeded idea. We have a deceptive history that says we're the only people in the world that were ever trained to value the soul or the value to humanity or to value sexuality and everything like that. And everybody else is a barbarian compared to us, which is, another conversation. So no formal, established, articulated religion, that's what they teach in Bible school. No formal, established, articulated religion can entirely rid itself from the false comfort of an us-them cohesion. Because when I dig into the image-seated self, I don't really do this, you don't really do this, we inherited a religious worldview. I was handed a Bible when I was born, the day I was born, in July, 50 years ago, right? I was handed a Bible when I was born from my grandmother, and she had circled in there John 3:16. It was that, Michael, if you would believe in him, you would not perish but have everlasting life. She even scratched out the words for God so loved the world. She scratched the world out and put for God so loved Michael. That if Michael would believe, Michael would not perish. And so I did not discover religion, right? I didn't discover it. I didn't come out and say, man, what is it really about? I was handed, here are the answers. You're going to see a lot of chaos. You're going to see a lot of chaos in yourself. You're going to see a lot of chaos in the world. You're going to find a lot of chaos in your own family. And here, that's the chaotic questions. Here is the answer. And so somebody handed me a book and said, the answer is right here. So as I encountered chaos, right? As I encountered chaos in myself, which there was a lot, encountered chaos in the world, which there was a lot, encountered the vanity and indignity of the lightless life, I already had the answer provided to me. Oh, it's that thing that if I would believe in him, I would not perish. And so somebody had preemptively given me the answer to the questions that they know I would one day come across. And we do the same thing. Parents of Muslim children, right? Parents of Hindu children, whatever. We get told, and here's what we do. One of two things. We either convert, right? We convert away from the religion of our childhood, or we convert through return to the religion of our childhood. And so, if you're raised Catholic and you grow up and you find, man, I find a bunch of chaos, and you get out in chaos, and you've been told, now the answer is right here. So what do? You go back to the source. You go back to Catholicism, right? You go back to that. Or you've been told that maybe you've been raised in Catholicism, maybe you've been raised Baptist, and you say, man, I got out there in so much chaos, but you don't go into a Baptist church, you go into a Pentecostal, charismatic church. And over there you say, man, I knew that my answer was somewhere, and I found it because I got the Spirit, and I found it because I got the power. And guess what? The people in your church that you came from say, well, why are you in a cult? Why are you around those people? It ain't a cult, Mama. I'm telling you, I found the truth. You need to get over here to where the truth I have. And they're like, but maybe we have the truth, because we're always trying to solve. We're always trying to answer the chaotic questions with an image-seated idea and reality. So we get a false comfort that I have it. Well, I have it as a Protestant. Why aren't you going back to your Catholic roots? Because they don't have the answer to the chaos. Well, I have it as I've converted to Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, right? Eastern Orthodox. Well, what Eastern Orthodox? Well, why have you left the Presbyterian Church? Because they don't have the answers. You ain't got the answers, Presbyterian Church, right? You don't have the answer to the chaos. They have the answer to the chaos, right? I was in Publix yesterday and talking to this woman, and I try to talk to people and just love on them, and just, it's very interesting. You're taught in Christianity, in my religion, that you should talk to people and love on them because they're all going to hell. And if you're nice enough to them over a couple of weeks, months, sometimes years, you'll eventually get them to convert to escape. So you're not really loving them. You're loving them as a means of making a sale, which is, I got news for you. That's not love. But I was talking to this lady, and I walked in and I said, how are you? And she said, oh, I'm good. I'm tired. And I said, well, you having a peaceful Saturday? And she said, oh, yeah. She said, I work all the time. She said, I work over at the bank, till this, it's 5:30, and then I come over here and I work 4 hours at Publix and da-da-da. She said, so I'm working today. I said, oh, God bless you. I said, well, I just pray today is a peaceful, drama-free day and that it goes by fast. And she answered, she said, inshallah. She said, yeah, God is willing. And I said, yeah, inshallah, for sure. God is willing. And so we talked, and she said, well, I just moved here. I said, oh, where are you from? And she said, Bangladesh. And I was like, oh, wow, how long have you been here? She said, 4 months. And I said, man, so it's just like, she said, yeah, I've hit the ground running. I've been working nonstop and everything else. And so I touched her shoulder. I said, well, you know what? May God just strengthen your body today, and may you get, I said, I don't know what I said, may you have a sign today or whatever that you just know God is with you. And she looked at me right, and she said, I think it just happened to me, just with you stopping and talking. Somebody said, now what's happened now? Well, you ain't talking no Muslims now. You ain't talking no Muslims. You know they ain't like us. They ain't got the answers, Sway. I mean, they can't tell you nothing. See, this is the problem. When you get large enough and you realize that the foolishness of the deception that my shape has an exclusivity on the source, you'll miss that the shared source is right in front of you the whole time. And we get taught this, right? We get taught this. Well, how do religions get so divided? Because we are held together by an us-them narrative. That's an interesting thing about nothing else matters. There's really no us. There's nobody, it's like a few people that most of whom are like, I think I'm in or whatever. We can't even be at war with other people. But man, many people's entire religion, as a matter of fact, the way they stay out of the chaos in their lives, they live self-destructive lives, right? but they get revitalized. That if there's a spiritual error that I can come against, well, now I've got something to channel all my self-destructive energy into. Let me study. Let me learn. Let me become a religious expert in my. So if I all of a sudden pop up and say, you know what, I grew up in church. I grew up in Christianity, and I realized it was deceiving me. The Bible says that the law of Moses are forever, and the statutes are forever. We've been lied to. Paul kept every commandment. We think we don't have to be circumcised. We think we can eat whatever we want. That is a lie. But truly, to keep the commandments is the whole of man. And I mean, they start ripping that Bible out, and don't you see this, and don't you see this? Show me where the commandments change. Show me where so what are you saying? So we've changed. We go to church on Saturday now, and we walk to temple, and we don't eat the devil's meat, and we don't do this, and we don't allow our women to do this. And I said, man, what are you doing? And they said, yeah, I was raised in that deception of grace. I was raised in that deception of Christianity. I was raised in that deception, but now I'm converting to the true. What is it? I'm converting to another sharp-edged shape of a shared source. And guess what? When I convert to that, I'm divided against you now. Why? Because what's happening is, I'm a 3%er, right? I mean, we've got the truth. We've got the truth. We've got the truth. Nobody else has it. We've got the truth. We've got it. And the problem is, as long as you think you have the truth and it excludes other shapes, it excludes people they don't have the truth, it excludes other people who have hoisted their sails in an attempt to catch the divine wind, the clarity should be in the fact that if at the end of the day you say, I've got something that nobody else has or very few people have and everybody else is deceived and I've got the truth from it, and oh, watch out to everybody who doesn't see it like I see it. That should be the number one ding, 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 ding. Man, I'm in an error here. I've been deceived. So, anyway, I was talking to Connie last night. One of my favorite old bits of Robin Williams. He talked about he was talking about his struggles with drugs back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, and he said he did a stand-up comedy thing. He says, "How do you know you have a drug problem?" He says, "Well, I'll give you a couple of signs." He said, "If on your tax returns it says $50,000 for snacks, bingo." So how do you know if you have a religion problem? If at the end of the day, the energy of your religion, the cohesion that holds it together, the subject of your fellowship, who you're going to talk to after the broadcast, who you're going to eat with this week, who you watch on television and hang up the phone, who you sit side by, who you go to coffee with, and you get down, and you find that the nature of your fellowship, the cohesion, that which holds it together is unity and division. Look at the truth that we have that they don't have. That is Antichrist. So what? Well, wait a minute. You have a truth, Pastor Mike. You're preaching the nothing else matters, the omega view. Don't you see others outside of it? No. I am saying, what would it look like if we embraced the shared source entirely and didn't buy into the temporal, ever-changing, ever-shifting falsities of the shape? What if we could structure a religious worldview around a shared source, around the cosmic nature of Christ, around what we intuitively know to be true about God, because we intuitively know it to be true about our highest selves? And what if we formulated all of a sudden, and we could walk into any church or mosque or temple or synagogue, and we could see people, and we could say, well, yeah, I see them. Why are they doing that? That's just the shape of the source. They have the same source inside them that I do, but theirs has taken on. Well, I live in a place where there's a lot of Orthodox Jewish people, right? And not too far, we have a lot of very devout Hindu people. And you see them walking, you see them going to temple, and you see them practicing, and you see their garb, and you see this. Somebody said, what do you think of them? Don't you need to rescue them from their deception? No, it's just the shape that the source that's in them, the source that's in me, they have an image-seated hunger to have answers to the chaotic questions. I inherited a view that made me put on a suit and go to church 7 days a week. I watched my Jewish neighbors walk up and down the street, and I see, boy, they dress different than everybody else, or they kind of wear their facial hair different than everybody else, and boy, they sure are faithful out here in the rain, walking up to the thing, and man, it's hot today, it's cold today, and boy, and somebody said, don't you look down on them because they're deceived, because they don't know that John 3:16, that whosoever believeth in him, that they don't know that whosoever believeth not in Christ shall be damned, and whosoever confesseth not the Lord Jesus. Don't you? Why? Because no, I don't get grieved. Why? Because I look at them and I say, wow, look at their response to the source. Look at the shape it has taken. They didn't invent dressing that way. My Hindu neighbors didn't invent dressing that way. They were told, here is the answer to the chaos way. And they said, perfect, I'll take it. And guess what? There are people on my street who walk up and down who have converted into Judaism from where they came. Why? Because they feel the answer to the chaos in there. There are Jewish people on my street who have converted out of Orthodox Judaism to maybe a more traditional, or maybe another religion. Why? There are Muslim people. I know many Muslim friends who say, yeah, I was raised this, I was raised strict this, I was raised strict this. I still believe, but I don't, what is it? Or some people say, yeah, I was really got kind of out there in the world, but I've really returned to my faith expression. What is it? I've taken on a different shape of the shared source, a different shaping of the shared source. The Omega view simply invites you to say, hey, psst, if you think about it in light of the person of Christ, if you take what you've learned in your us-them religious shaping and pass it through the filter, the prism of the person of Christ, all of a sudden you go, oh, wow. Yeah, I used to think God was for us and God was against us, but then I remembered what Jesus said, that that's the way you think God is, but God is not like that. Why don't you become enlarged and complete in your understanding of the perspective of God, and you can start walking in the same mercy, compassion, love, and largeness that God sees the world with. Wow. And man, it totally changed my life. So, well, who are we against on the Omega View? Who do we want to go to? Mike, let's go to coffee on Tuesday and talk about how so-and-so doesn't know and such and so doesn't know. And the guy on television, the lady preaching this, let's go to there and talk about what they don't know about God. I have nothing to talk about. All I can do when I see them is say, wow, I see through the shape that the same source, the intuited, deposited, image-seated knowledge of God has taken that on. And if you dig into it, you're going to find that a lot of the shape looks different from yours, but if you ever get down to the core of it, it's all about mercy, it's all about love, it's all about compassion. I'm not saying we don't get deceived by an us-them deception, because it's the us-them that brings us cohesion around the shared source of love, and that is the nature and the history of the problem or the chaos that we see. One can hardly envision, let's bring this thing on home, one can hardly envision, wow, I'm looking at my notes. One can hardly envision a locally, tribally, or culturally formulated religion ever declaring that someone else is the chosen people. I mean, I'm not going to sit there in the Middle East and invent an idea that says the people of Africa are chosen. I'm not going to sit in Africa and invent an idea that the people of East Asia are chosen. This doesn't matter. No, we invent that we're the chosen, right? The shape it takes is not that, well, they're the chosen people, the chosen nation of God. They're the ones that have enlightenment. They're the ones that have revelation. They're the ones that have salvation. That's not what we inherit. We inherit that we have it. We have it. I didn't come into the world being told, just so you know, Mike, we're all Christians, but the true salvation is in Judaism. We're all Christians, but the true salvation is in Islam. That's ridiculous. I get brought into the world and told the true salvation is not in the them, it's in the us. It's laughable to think that somehow, Joseph Smith or whatever is going to be walking across America and have a revelation that, wait a minute, it's the people of Southern Sudan that are the chosen. I mean, that doesn't happen that way. Why? Because we are always, the religions that we believe in, they take the shape of us being the star of the show. Right? That's why we have an entire book of the Assyrians and their gods, and the Egyptians and their gods, and the Babylonians and their gods, and Baal and they're all bad, but our God is the one. And so here's what happens. So the Assyrians start moving, and their armies start moving, the Greeks start moving, the Babylonians start moving, and they start chomping up territory. And here's little bitty Israel in the middle, and little bitty Israel gets chomped up in the territory, and they become a territory of Rome or whatever. And what happens in Israel? They say, well, great. One of us isn't keeping the law here, and we need to start killing people who aren't keeping the law here because we just got overtaken by a foreign army. There's obviously that God of Jehovah is mad at us. Man, we didn't get our crops. Some of y'all are working on the Sabbath. Some of y'all aren't observing the cleansing. Some of y'all aren't making the pilgrimage. So we're in trouble here. We're having a famine. Nobody ever stops to go, man, that entire region was hit with a famine. Nobody ever stops to think the Babylonians and the Greeks and the Romans, they mowed down everybody in their path. Yeah, but everybody else is insignificant. It's what's happening to us. God, what have we done? Why are the Babylonians here? They've taken us captive. Why have they taken us captive? We've sinned. We're sorry, and we're going to do better, and we're going to start to do better. And the prophet says, I know why God's mad at us, because we're not caring for the poor. And they say, let's care for the poor. We'll get back. Oh, we get out. And then what happens is another kingdom comes and eats up the Babylonians. And what do we say? God just told us that our God did that to them because the reason they're no longer in power is because of how they picked on us. We see the whole world with us as the center. Of course we would. We don't sit there and always think of the other as the truth, although there's some weird superstition in the mainline church, particularly in the past 60 years or so, that we've done quite a reversal regarding our traditional estimation of Israel. This is what's happened in the American church. I guess a lot of places, but a lot of in the I guess evangelical or whatever church, that Israel is the chosen, right? That at the reestablishment of the nation, the partial reestablishment of the nation, that Israel's the chosen, and that now everybody who's aligned with Israel enjoys favor or salvation, and those who are not aligned with Israel don't enjoy favor or salvation. But the only reason we see it that way is we consider ourselves an extension of Israel. That every true church person is, and listen, you got to be honest. That's a complete reversal from our former position. Our former position was in our antichrist Christian faith. We inherited that it depends on the idea that the Jews, right, in Israel, that they have lost their faith or forfeited their faith or rejected their faith or were blinded to faith, that they closed their eyes to salvation. Right? That's our Christian foundation. That the reason we get it by faith is that the intended people of God rejected it and we inherited it. So we don't get the idea that, well, they're chosen and we're chosen as an extension of them. We actually get the idea that they rejected it and it fell to us. As a matter of fact, our New Testament is full of, and guess what God's going to do to them because they rejected it? Well, my Bible says that all Israel will be saved. Use a lie? No, it doesn't. Yes, it does over there in Romans 11. Back up. It does say all Israel shall be saved, but what else does it say? Just because they're Jewish don't mean they're Israel. That's what your Bible says. So the birth of our Christian faith is predicated upon the Jews blew it and we picked it up. Ha! And they were plucked out. Now, if they convert to Christianity, they can come back in. But otherwise, they're out there. And we have Romans 10 where Paul is weeping. I just wish my brethren could get the salvation that I have because I was willing to leave the foundation of my ideas in the written word and go with the living word. So what is it? It's not that they are. It's that they can be if they join us. Well, yes, but the Bible doesn't say the Jews are lost. Yeah, but it's not real clear. There's an eternal blindness, a temporary rejection, that most will, some will, few will. Well, all, it's not that all have been rejected. There's a remnant that have chosen God. We formulate an idea that it's always us who are the star, always us who are the center. But the source of all inspired religion, and we're going to close on these couple of thoughts. The source of all inspired religion, shared common universal religion, that should point us to three things. And these will be the three things, and this is, unfortunately, as far as I'll get today. If you really get out of the shape and get to the source, three things are going to occur to you. Number one, that all religions are cosmically one. If you can look past the shape and look to the source, you're going to find out. I'd love it if you could ever talk to people. This, to me, is the message of the incarnation. That if you could ever get past the Antichrist deceptions about the shape of religion and talk to somebody, talk to a Muslim, talk to a Hindu, sit down, break bread in their house, watch the way they interact, watch the way they talk, stand outside of yourself and observe them. My gosh, these people have a lot of weird religious ideas. Then watch videos of yourself engaged in your religious practice. Go, oh my gosh, theirs is only weird because it's different from my weird. But if you sit down and you pay attention long enough, if you can get past your fear long enough, right? If we can get past our conditioning long enough, what would be so great is to watch people, and it's very difficult. Here's what's difficult. This was so funny. I was going to say, it'd be so cool if we could watch videos of people in their homes just interacting normally, but not know what religion they are, and then be told later, can you guess what religion they are? But isn't it interesting that when I talk to you about maybe watching a Muslim family, a Jewish family, a Taoist family, a Hindu family, Do you know why you can't say, well, I wouldn't know what religion they are? You know why you can't say that? Because the shape that they take, you already know they're going to kind of look alike. Why? Because the shape comes from where they come from. Yes, there's the exception where somebody who doesn't look like, but you would say, oh, yeah, well, they look like where they come from. I mean, they're going to have certain features. Why? Because they had the source wherever they came from, but the shape it took was abound to their cultural, regional, tribal identities. But man, what if you couldn't see them? What if you just had to read a transcript? What if you read their thoughts? What if you read their ideas of God? What if you read their ideas of God and found out they were a Buddhist? Well, Buddhism doesn't believe in God. That's not true. Buddhism doesn't offer a theological commentary, or constrictive commentary on God. But to say that Buddhists don't believe in the idea of Tian, right? That they don't believe in the largeness of God is a silly idea. Confucian, Muslim, Tao, we have an idea of God. We have different ideas of God, but they spring from the same source. But what if you found out, oh my gosh, these people think just like me, and then I come to find out that they're original Baptists, not Reformed Baptists. I thought they knew God, and now I find out they're going to burn in hell forever because they sprinkle instead of immerse. I mean, you gotta at some point wake up from the deception. So first, they're cosmically one. The second thing that'll happen to you is that the observable Christ amiss impotence, this is so big, the Christ amiss impotence of conversion. So that I was raised Baptist and I'm now Pentecostal. That I was raised in the faith church, but I'm now Greek Orthodox. That I was raised Muslim and I'm now Christian. That I was raised Christian in the church, and then I finally discovered the truth is in Islam, or the truth is in, the 12 tribes, or whatever this idea is. That there is an observable Christ amiss impotence in conversion. What is the there's this, that there's an impotence when it comes to answering the largest, in your notes, right? The largest and most lasting questions about the human condition. What is the largest question about the human condition? I convert to Islam. I convert to the Nation of Islam. I convert to Orthodox Judaism. Secular Judaism, or modern Judaism, postmodern Judaism. I convert to Catholicism. I convert to this, and that when I get in there, the problem is there's something amiss in my conversion, which is this: it doesn't answer the largest question. What's the largest question? My conversion to my individual religion doesn't tell me what's supposed to happen with everybody who has the same frailty I do. It's interesting to say, I'm part of a very small group and I believe this and nobody else does, and you better get anybody. Here's your assertion. Everybody who doesn't believe what I believe is temporally not favored and cursed, and as well as eternally damned if you don't believe what I believe. That right there, any person who has ever seen Christ, that right there should go, wait a minute. Let's not let my seemingly unlimited certainty about doctrinal truth formulate a false idea about God's limited sympathy. I am so sure of the truth that it has convinced me that God's love will reach no one thoroughly like it reaches those who believe what I believe. That right there, you should go, man, the devil, golly, Satan, you had me. So individual religious conversion doesn't answer the largest question. Okay, I've got to answer to the question about me and mine, but what about the other 7.9 billion people on the planet? And not only doesn't answer the largest question about humanity's shared frailty, it doesn't answer our most lasting question, which is what? Our ongoing, perpetual, stubborn frailty as individuals. That's a big thing, because you convert and you say, I did it. And in the excitement of conversion, you're on. It's big. It's us. We share. We bind. I'm not on drugs. I'm not in this. I'm not in the streets. I'm not sleeping around. I'm no longer empty. I'm no longer putting in my business. I'm hoping to save my marriage. And we go that kind of thing. And then what we find out after 3 years, 5 years, 10 years is that we had this radical conversion, which changed us through preoccupation behaviorally. But when the dust settles, man, I still got some stuff. I'm still sabotaging my relationships. I'm still self-destructive. I was on fire. I did everything. They gave me a fidget spinner down at my temple mosque synagogue, and I spun that thing as fast as I could. But after a while, and it was so exciting, I was spinning. See how you spin it? I was spinning. I got the camaraderie. I got this. But after a while, I was being destroyed inside because my habits were creeping up, and my anger was creeping up, and my pride was creeping, my lust was creeping up, and my family, and my husband, and my children. And man, I said, I don't know why this fidget spinner didn't solve it. And you know what I point you to? The impotence of the shape of our religion. And it should redirect your focus to the source of our religion. The third thing it does, if you focus on the source, first thing that should happen is you should, wait a minute, okay, cosmically, the religions of the world are one. Because Christ is cosmic. Christ is bigger than our individual things. Secondly, individual conversion doesn't answer the bigger question about everybody else, and it doesn't even answer the bigger question about what's going on inside me. You know what a lot of times we do? We reconvert. Yeah, I got saved. I was down there at the Baptist church, and it was seeker-friendly, and I was down there at, Wellstar Church. I think that's a hospital, whatever it is. I was down at Wellstar Church, and, man, they had the truth. It wasn't like the Presbyterian. It wasn't like the Methodist church. Pastor Frank is preaching the truth, and you're on fire, and you're on this, and you're on that. But about 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 years later, man, what's going on with you? Man, you know what I did? I turned on, and I saw John Eagleston, now he's preaching the truth. He's not like, and what happens? You got to get to another thing, new fidget spinner. Well, this one's different. Yeah, this one spins counterclockwise. But we work through these. Why do we need the next one? Why do we need the next cause to pick up? Because we're looking at it and say, man, all of my false ideas about God, they don't fix my individual chaos. Yeah, but they give me excitement. They give me something to focus on. And while I'm focused on that, my chaos doesn't appear. Yeah, but after you've fidgeted your spin for as many times, you're going to sit down, you're going to go, this didn't fix it. And the third thing you're going to discover when you focus on the source is this, that our variant of religion, right, our variant shape, is equally deserving of that sort of a wink and a nod. Wink, wink, nod, nod. That my Christianity from my past is as deserving of a wink and a nod skepticism. Do you believe in your Christianity? Well, yeah, but now that you look at the source, yeah. Why? It's the same skepticism that would prompt us to never take my shaped faith seriously enough. That I would believe in my heart, that I would legitimately believe in my heart, that my God concept is the demarcation line between salvation and damnation. In your notes, I'll say it this way, that our variant, when you get to the source, you're going to see, wait a minute, the source makes me believe that all these religions are connected somehow, number one. Number two, when you look at the source, you're going to realize, you know what, the individual ideas, they don't have the power to save that they promised they did. They don't answer the big question about the world, and they don't really answer the big question about my own stuff. I start out thinking, I got my stuff together, I'm never going to have problems again. I'm no longer lusting. I'm no longer sleeping around. I'm no longer working the streets. I'm no longer selling drugs. I'm no longer doing drugs. I'm no longer drinking like my granddaddy. Look, I have converted in all my things. Look at my individual chaos is fixed, and I've got the answer for everybody else's chaos. But then you start thinking, yeah, but if it all depends on they got to believe like me or they're hopeless, that's kind of strange. That's kind of arrogant. That's ass of 10, right? It's not beyond whatever ass of 9, whatever the next one is. But then I start looking at, yeah, I was telling everybody that it was the Savior thing for me. But I'm kind of messed up still. And then you bring to the third thing, which is what? That when you look at the source, you got to say, you know what? I love my religion, Christianity, Judaism, I love it, Islam. But it deserves the same kind of skepticism as all these other faiths, which is what? I can believe in the Bible. I can be a Baptist. I could be a Methodist. I could be a Catholic. I could be a Protestant. I could be a Sunni. I could be a Shia, right? I could be all that stuff. But I can't believe it so seriously that I think that my cornerstone of God is the line between the saved and the damned. That what I inherited, Michael, here's your Bible, God so loved the world, I would never believe it to the point where I would say, yeah, that the line of my Christian doctrine is how the God of the whole universe draws the line. Everybody, everybody who does not believe what Michael T. Smith believes, you're on the wrong side of the line. Everybody does not believe what about this? My neighbors. Everybody does not believe what the Joneses believe, they're on the wrong side of the line. Everybody does not believe, my Hindu neighbors. Everybody who doesn't believe what the Franklins believe, they're on the wrong side of the line. That the God of heaven looks down on my street and says, only this house, not these 8. Only that house, not these 8. That I would ever believe something so obviously antichrist is an indication that we're not looking at the source. Why? Because we are all aware, and I'm going to end here, we are all aware that if we believe our book and we believe our interpretation of the book, and we really don't. Well, we're talking about all religions. We have a Jewish religion. No, we don't. We have a Middle Eastern Abrahamic religion. No, we don't. Our Christianity is not. Somebody said, yes, it is. It comes right out of the Hebrew. No, it doesn't. Look at the Jewish people in your community and find out how differently they are than you, how differently they believe in you. We have a little bit of Hebrew, Middle Eastern idea of God. We have a little bit of Sumerian idea of God, a little bit of an Egyptian idea of God, a little bit of a Babylonian idea of God, and we have a little bit of a Greek idea and a little bit of a Roman idea and a little bit of an African idea. Why? We have a well-traveled shape that made a lot of stops and got a lot of passports, and it's all bigger than those other ideas combined, but it's still not big enough to see through the suspicion and the skepticism and the sketchiness of the idea that the line stops. That everybody, Mike, for the last time on my thing here, that the line of in, right? This is the in. That line stops here, and that everybody who doesn't see it the way I see it, all of you are out. That if you're not way I see it, which is, maybe 100 million, see it your way, I don't know. There's a billion of us. I'll give you a billion. That means there are 7 billion that are out. But you know what you already know? That if that was reversed, that if your Jewish neighbor, Muslim neighbor, Hindu neighbor, whatever told you, no, you got it wrong. We are the ones who are in. What we inherited from our tribe, that's in. You all, what was our color? You all, you red people, you're the out one. We would say, oh my God, what does that guy say? What is it, Balky? Don't be ridiculous. I mean, whatever. That's ridiculous. You don't actually, please, I hope for the love of God, my Jewish neighbor is not actually so stupid as to think that they're the ones who have the truth. Oh my God, please tell me, my Muslim neighbor, as nice as he is, he's only being nice to me to what? To get me to convert to only worshiping God through the prophet? I mean, please tell me he's not that. Well, won't he have a rude awakening one day when he finds out, it ain't like you say, it's like I say. I mean, that. Well, there's a lot of us Christians. So there's a lot of Muslims. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of Buddhists. There's a ton of Hindus. You don't have the corner on the market on anything. But if you step back to an omega view, if you zoom out a little, you're going to say, oh, I get it. The source is shared. And I not be intimidated by the shape, because the shape is beautiful. The shape of my Jewish neighbors, the shape of my Hindu neighbors, the shape of my Muslim neighbors, the shape of my Christian neighbors, the shape of my Buddhist neighbors. The shape is beautiful, right? But why is the shape beautiful? Because I can see through the shape to see the source beneath it all. And I'm inviting you to an omega view that says, let's just step back and close our eyes and look and say, okay, where can we see that this? How can we connect that the source is the same? And find true religion in that space. God religion. Religion that's large enough to drag its shape out so that God is not painted as a loser, incompetent, bumbling, or that humans are not painted as so powerful that and let me tell you the truth, I know you. I know you. God knows you. God knows me. And what we've said to the world, this is true salvation, we know in our heart of hearts, because we know it's not as mighty to save as we thought it was. But you know what? The only way we can say we got to take God to everybody else, we first had to take God from everybody else in our hearts and minds. And I'm just saying, the Omega View invites you to wake up to say, I get it now. I get it. The source is universal because we're all made in God's image and likeness. But the shapes change over time. And guess what? They're changing over time. And we can't stop it. So what can we do? I'm trying to hold on to the old shape. But where is Christ going? You better grab onto the source, because like a rocket, it's moving forward. And the image of God and the nature of God is becoming clearer and clearer. And That's what Paul did. He grabbed onto it, and he rode, and he rode, and he rode, and he rode, and he rode. And then out there in the desert, when he got to the thing, he told his neighbors, they said, what are you doing? He said, I've been following the living word wherever it leads, and I can look and see where I started, and there's a point, and it's going to a point where we will see at the end. And what are we supposed to do? I want you to keep on following me like I was following Christ. Grab onto this thing and see where it's going. Well, it's not going anywhere. It's died where Paul died. That was the last thought of anything ever that could ever be true, was when Paul died. You know what? They thought that about Stephen. When Stephen died, it was the last thing ever. And Stephen died one chapter before that whole thing blew up wide open. Well, why would it go beyond Stephen? It should never have gone beyond Stephen. If Jesus was going to change it, he should have changed it those 3 years. If he ain't changed it, I'm staying with him, and I ain't getting away from him, and and Stephen died and didn't even know Gentiles could be saved. Stephen died still thinking that the only way to get in this thing is if you get circumcised and you eat the law. Stephen died before you even know you could eat the devil's meat, swine. What did Paul not know? Paul didn't die not knowing anything. He knew everything there was. He told us everything there was. He said, I fully preached the gospel to you. Yeah, well, he also said that his doctrine is partial, incomplete, and fragmented. And we don't know anything yet. But one day when we know love, we will have known all that there is. Well, I'll tell you what love is. Love is loving your neighbor enough to not let them go to hell, to never let them get over to God. Because if God gets his greedy, pedophile, gross mitts on them and starts doing to them what he's planning on doing to them when he gets a hold of them, and Jesus just tell him he can't wait to get down there and kill and destroy. I mean, I read how the Bible ends. You don't want to mess with that God. The Bible ends with a picture of God not very clearly related at all to the true person of Christ. The Bible ends with a picture of God that makes God look worse than you. And the truth is, the book of Revelation is just a small self-commentary on religious oppression, and it's a vision out of the small self for how evil religious oppression is, how evil it is to say, you don't believe like us and we're going to do you harm, and it's the small self crying out for vengeance upon them, which is what the small self does, and it formulates a prophetic picture out of the small self vision of vengeance upon them, and it completely ignores what Christ would say, which is what? They don't know what they're doing. They didn't know when they did it to me and wouldn't accept a larger idea of God from me. They don't know what they're doing when they did it to you and won't accept a larger idea of God from you. That's what he would tell his people. But we got handed a book. Go to war. Muslims, Jews, so-called professing Christians, if they don't believe in Jesus, they're not in. Well, this guy says he believes in Jesus. If they don't believe in Jesus our way, he's definitely not in. The devil is busy. But thank God we hung around long enough not to know the truth, that we hang around long enough to admit the truth, which is what? That our shape answers a lot of questions, but it doesn't answer the large question. God, you mean you're going to lose the whole world except for people that believe like me? And it doesn't answer the other question. I say this thing is the answer to everything, but I still see it hasn't fixed all my own chaos, let alone the chaos in the world. And now we step back and say, you know what? Maybe God's been at work the whole time. And maybe we're all caught up in it. Maybe we have different shapes, but we all have the same source as image bearers. And that's all I have time for. Thank you for your support. If you heard something today, say, my God, I'm supporting this, thank you. If you're in the club, that's in the extra support, you say, yeah, I'm giving you an extra penny this week for every negative thing. Every time I find somebody posts online or some ministry tagging you or anything, I'm just going to make my normal $5 a week, and now I'm giving $5.61 this week. Thank you for that. It turns a negative into a positive. Connie and I start looking and say, who's talking bad about us this week? Woo, man, we might be able to pay all our bills in 1 month. Look at that, ain't God good? Thank you. If you've been blessed, if you believe in it, of course I'm jesting. You don't have to give any extra money, but I'm saying it's our way of just managing the bullying, and it's been an ongoing bullying. But we respond in love, and always have, and we'll never stop. If you believe in it, thank you for your support. You can reach us, MikeandConnie.com/support. You can reach us, MikeCon LLC. MikeCon LLC on the Cash App and the Venmo, and you, of course, can reach there. And you can write us, 2870 Michael and Connie LLC, 2870 Peachtree Road Northwest, number 230, Atlanta, Georgia, 30305. That's Michael and Connie LLC, 2870 Peachtree Road Northwest, number 230, Atlanta, Georgia, 30305. Thank you, bless you. It means more than we can say. Peace, health, protection, light, preservation, soundness, abundance, aboveness, favor, the joy of the Lord, loaded with benefits every day. I thank you for clarity, for grace, for wisdom. Some of you have decisions to make. I thank you that light arises in the midst of darkness. Some of you are facing very dark times with your children. I pray a comfort and a peace on you. God didn't do that to you. You're not being punished. The world is chaotic. When you're on good days, sometimes there's chaos. When you're on your worst days, sometimes there's peace. Don't be deceived but think you're being punished by God. God is not your punishment. God is the light that arises in darkness, and may that light arise. May joy arise. May clarity arise. And Connie and I bless you. We bless God for you all. In Jesus' name. And all that agree, say amen. Amen. Listen, on behalf of all of us here in the studio, Pop, Kenobi, who was surprisingly chill today, have a great and glorious week. Remember, God loves you and we love you, and nothing else matters but God.